Anna and Eddie, do you know that you guys are muted? No.
Yeah, sorry, I just muted myself.
Fine, just checking that you knew.
Yeah.
Got 18 people in the waiting room, so as soon as it hits 4, I'll let everyone in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've got 23 people in, and I am letting them all in now.
Hello. Okay, now, hi.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Courtney. I am a brand and digital executive at The Red Tree, And alongside my colleague Fiona, who is head of projects, will be hosting today's webinar, Beyond Beauty, Building a Brand with Purpose. But before we start, there are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to run through. So if you're not already muted, if you could do so now, all participants should remain muted throughout the webinar. There will be an opportunity to ask questions. So please write them down in the chat box and we'll get to them as soon as possible. And just to introduce the Red Tree to those of you who are new to us, we are the leading international beauty brand consultancy. We have over 80 years of experience within the beauty industry, with a global client list of major corporates, private equity houses, and well-funded startups. So we're essentially the go-to company for vision, strategy, and implementation. And today's webinar is really important and really relevant across industries, particularly within the beauty industry. So every year in the beauty industry, 120 billion units of packaging is produced globally. And a majority of the plastic waste generated, it winds up in landfills. So it's really important that the beauty industry implements sustainable changes, as well as brands recognize the social and environmental impact of their initiatives, so that we can all contribute to a more sustainable future. And that's why we're really excited to have 3 game-changing brands, Faace, Fussy, and Fiils, who are doing just that. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor on to these incredible founders, starting with Jasmine Wick Stevens. She's the founder of Faace, and she'll be introducing herself as well as her brand. So Jasmine, over to you.
Hi everyone, and nice to see you all today. Thanks for joining us. So tell me a bit about me and Faace. So I've been in beauty comms for the last 15 years, and then I actually launched Faace, which is our skincare brand, a year ago. So Faace is giving customers a new way to shop for their skin. It's been designed for customers to be able to use products in a really kind of faff-free, easy to use, consumer-friendly way. We're all vegan, cruelty-free, and where we can, we kind of make the most sustainable choices with our packaging and with initiatives as well, which we'll probably talk about a bit more today. So rather than kind of giving customers the option of shopping by concern or end benefit, our way is tired, period, sweaty, menopause. So it's really, really straight up and tapping in more into the lifestyle factor that people are experiencing. Yeah, and kind of tackling slightly more taboo topics than perhaps other skincare brands have done historically.
Matt, Eddie, one of you, would you like to introduce yourselves as well as Fussy?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Matt from Fussy, and along with my co-founder, Eddie, who's also here, we left the murky world of advertising around six months ago to join the clean world of beauty. And I guess, yeah, Fussy was kind of born with the belief that if we're all a little bit more fussy about the products that we use or the brands we choose to support, that we can create a better planet. Our whole mission is to banish single-use plastic from your daily routine. And we just happen to be starting with a deodorant. And we do this by creating foremost simple and effective products that are backed up by science rather than, you know, the latest trends or buzzwords. And we really believe that all our products have, I guess, design at their core. We use design as a bit of a differentiator, and that sustainable products can really come without sacrifice. So yeah, nice to meet you all, and that's us.
Anna, would you like to introduce yourself as well as Fiils?
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna, founder of Fiils. Nice to be with you all today. And I've been in the beauty industry for about 15 years. So I predominantly worked in makeup for some of the largest D2C beauty brands. And I think behind the scenes, I've always lived a fairly low impact lifestyle. So the career that I chose which was working with beauty brands, consistently selling products, working in product development. It kind of contradicted the lifestyle that I kind of lived behind the scenes. And when I started to think about, setting up my own business, I realised that I wanted a business that contributed to a change in the beauty industry and not to the problem. Obviously, with, as Courtney mentioned, there's this huge problem of waste in the beauty industry. So I set up Fiils predominantly to make sustainability stylish, easy and affordable for the beauty consumer. So our model is a refillable model. So we provide refillable bathroom essentials with the most amazing clean ingredients, 76% pure plant extracts. When we started around a year ago, my initial kind of foray was we recently rebranded. We came to market with an MVP just to kind of see what the uptake would be on a refillable model and how consumers would respond to it. We had fantastic success, and we implement a 360 recycling service with Fiils. And yeah, still quite early on our journey with the brand, but yeah, rebranding and relaunching in the next week. So yeah, that's us.
Great, thank you. Well, as you can all see, we've got some absolutely fantastic founders with us today, real kind of sustainability royalty. And what we'd like to do is just to reiterate, if you do have any questions for them, please put them in the chat box and then we'll get to them and we can see which of the brands would be most relevant to answer those. What we'll do in the meantime is we've got some questions prepared that we want to dig into some of the how the brands have approached purpose. So if we could start with Jasmine, if you could just maybe talk through how you've had purpose and integrated that into Faace.
Yeah, of course. So I think for us it's been quite a few ways. We always try and endeavour to be as sustainable as we can with the choices of the packaging and everything we do. So for example, despite the pressure of retailers, we didn't actually launch with any sachets for over a year because we couldn't find a resource that was actually recyclable, which again wouldn't have been my first choice. We're moving towards PCR plastic for this year, but we launched initially with recyclable tubes. I did extensive research in terms of aluminium or sugarcane or plastic, and just it was very murky, and so I felt like that was the best choice for us. So in terms of like the formulation, we also partner with a lab that specialises in ethical and sustainable beauty. So I'm not a formulator, but recognising that I wanted that aspect to be watertight, it was really important for me that we got a team on board that could really help me navigate that one. But also I think outside of just the product itself, in terms of actually building our brand, the way we talk about skin and the way we talk about periods or being sweaty, it's very empowering for people. Our new product, Menopause Faace, it's literally called Menopause Faace, so it's owning those issues. So I think it's also about being purposeful in the way we kind of try and own a conversation to be positive within beauty, where sometimes language can be used to be quite negative, steering away from terms like anti-aging, for example. I think also being accessible in our price point. So we've brought a product to market that has, really good concentrations of active ingredients in there. And our margins are really tight as a result, because it was really important for me that we brought a product to market that was accessible in its price point, whilst kind of, I guess, aesthetically, I like to think that it's quite kind of premium, which actually is kind of, I guess, been testament to the fact that our retail kind of strategy has been able to be quite broad in that sense. So I guess for me, it's positive changes in the way you kind of present your brand, your language, being accessible to people, not being overly complicated, not being expensive, but also kind of making the most sustainable choices that you can with the budgets that you have whilst developing the brand.
And I think, all of that is fantastic and testament to the brands. I think the other bit that might just be interesting to explain a bit is some of your charity partnerships.
Yeah, how could I forget? So when we first launched, we launched with a partnership with Hey Girls. So for every single one of our hero masks, a packet of sanitary products is donated to somebody in need. on the customer's behalf via Hey Girls, which is amazing. And from a consumer and press perspective is something that's been talked about a lot, because I think that kind of tangible aspect of being able to give back on behalf of your purchase has resonated really well. And then for the launch of Menopause Faace as well, we've partnered with the Menopause Charity, which is a recently launched organisation from Louise Newson, who is the menopause doctor and probably one of the most well-known faces of menopause in the UK. And so for every mask that we sell, we'll be donating to her charity as well. So again, I think that was really important for me when developing the whole brand and the story of the brand. But I think it's done us well as well, because it's something that the customer really, really seems to care about too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, fantastic. If we go on to Eddie and Matt, and we know that you are fussy by name and nature, it would be good if you could just explain to everybody some of the fussy choices that you've made in bringing your brand to market.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you say, fussy by name, fussy by nature. And I think, that's something that runs through our brand. We are extra fussy about every decision we make, the people that we work with, their sustainability credentials, the materials we use, the ingredients we use, how we deliver the product. And I think, starting a brand from scratch, that's given us, we can sort of lay our foundations. We're not trying to, backpedal like a lot of, these big brands that you see out there. But, we set out to be good for people, good for planet and good for people. And as Courtney mentioned, the 120 billion pieces of plastic, our packaging is designed specifically to counteract that. We have a refill which decomposes in your bin, and it simply by throwing away and by not throwing away and refilling, each Fussy deodorant stops 250 single-use plastic deodorants. So it's just a small choice that you can make each month rather than buying a single-use plastic deodorant. And we're good for good for skin as well, and for the body. We have 8 natural ingredients that we worked with a cosmetic chemist and a microbiologist to develop an effective formula which is safe, cruelty-free, vegan, and of course hardworking as well. And I think it's the same to Jasmine's point, which is we set out to create real change, and to do that we do have to be at a low price point, and to make it accessible to the masses, because it's only when the masses buy into this that we can create real change.
Yeah, great. And I think probably as well, the reason that fussy is so important is that just in general, consumers are fussier than they've ever been as well. So you guys are doing things differently, but ultimately it's what the consumer is demanding now as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what our research showed us, and yeah, we're very much playing into that.
Great.
And just before we move on, though, we did receive a question in the chat just on what you were speaking about. So the question is, how does it stop 250 single-use plastic deodorants? So maybe if you could just give them an overview of how exactly you do that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great. Thanks for your question. Great question. So it's each month you get sent a refill that you put in, and the refill is made from waste sugarcane. So when the refill ends, you just pull out the empty waste sugarcane and you just throw it into the bin, and that naturally decomposes in the bin or in your garden waste. So over the course of a lifetime, a human will use 250 deodorants. So essentially, we're stopping those 250 single-use plastic deodorants from being thrown into the bin.
Yeah, it's worth saying we took averages there on that, so give or take 250. But we also had the results yesterday of our. We've undertaken a full carbon assessment of our deodorant versus a regular deodorant over the period of 12 months. So rather than throwing away a plastic deodorant every month, how much carbon does that save in terms of producing a regular deodorant and shipping it here? And by using Fussy, you'll actually save 81% of carbon emissions compared to a usual deodorant over 12 months.
That's fantastic. And that's obviously per customer as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that gets scaled. Shall we go to the next question that's come in, and then we can go to Anna after that? So there's a question to Jasmine about how donating to period care impacts your margins. Obviously, you can answer that with a reason.
Yeah, it impacts our margin in as much as that it absolutely does. And for every mask, we fund a pack of sanitary products, and that's a decision that we made when we first set out and budgeted for the business, that we were going to make that amount of donations over the course of a year, and it's something that we want to do and continue to do. So yes, it does, but it's part of our what makes our brand. So yeah.
And I think I would add to that of my experience in the beauty industry over the past 10 years. There's been a huge shift in people actually being willing to spend more if a product does have more purpose and is doing good. So where previously people would have probably seen that as an added cost, it's now more of a baseline that people expect there to be a level of purpose and sustainability and are willing to pay more for it.
And it gives you more of a personality as a brand, because the customer starts to understand the things that you care about as a business, and that makes it easier for them to want to get behind your business.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So Anna, if we could go to you, and just if you could give us a little bit more background on your sustainability journey within Fiils.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the primary thing for me when I was thinking about, how do we approach, I guess, a typical shampoo, beauty and personal care supply chain in a different way and make it more sustainable. I kind of knew, I know the beauty consumer, and I kind of knew that for a beauty consumer to buy into a refillable model, that it needed to be affordable, and it needed to be stylish, and I think it needed to be easy, so I mean, from my experience of actually looking at refillable beauty brands, I'd kind of gone to the Body Shop, kind of trialed what they were doing with their whole refillables, which was very much take a bottle, refill it in store, had a look at the competition on the market. And if I'm completely honest, I knew that the beauty consumer would find it difficult. I think the consumer in general, right, we all lead really busy lifestyles. So I think having a sustainable brand that it made it easier for customers to adopt sustainable changes, I think was really, really important for me. And that was actually what heavily influenced the choice of packaging. So we also decided that rather than launch soap, shampoo bars, which again, I think are kind of like, going into that territory of kind of the unfamiliar product. A lot of our customers don't like using solid bars, which is why they shop with us. But the problem then you have with liquids is they're very, very difficult to package. I would love like a biodegradable case, like what you guys are doing at Fussy, to put our formulations in, but that just doesn't exist for liquids. So we decided on the refill packs, which basically meant that we are reducing the amount of, there's lots of different ways you can look at sustainable packaging, and the way we looked at it was, right, okay, so can we reduce the amount of materials that are being used? And that's why we went for the refillable packs. They're a lot less energy intensive to make, they take up a lot less space when shipped. But I think the key thing for us was, right, okay, we still need a way to get this packaging back from the consumer. It was a bit of a bugbear of mine. I have so much makeup, so many beauty products from my time in the beauty industry, and it just always used to drive me mad that brands would, create this beautiful product and then give the packaging to the consumer, and it was like, right, bye, you kind of take care of that waste, with no instructions on how to recycle it or any, recycling programs. So I knew that, we would have to give the customer the option of sending the packaging back to us to be recycled properly. And around that, we'd need a lot of education, a lot of transparency around why we were doing that. And so far we've had, an amazing return rate, a lot better than I expected, actually. We've had a close to an 80% return rate with our packaging, with our MVP, which shows that customers are in the market for sustainable beauty, and they the model that we've chosen is working. So, you know, that's kind of a bit about the packaging. And then the formulations, again, you know, I think waterless beauty is something that, you know, we know is quite a big trend in the industry. I mean, it's not really a trend. I think it's something that, you know, we're kind of, as a planet really, you know, we're kind of facing a bit of an issue with this as well. So our formulas are made from pure plant extracts. So usual formulas are over 80% water. Ours are literally over 75% pure botanical extracts, vegan, cruelty-free, scented with essential oils, and we make them with an eco-certified manufacturer in Europe. So yeah, it's not just about the packaging for us. We're still a beauty brand at the end of the day. People are buying our formulas, and you know, having the amazing sustainable formulas with that whole kind of clean beauty story was super important for us as well. So we've still got a bit to go. I mean, you know, I think Jasmine mentioned, you know, I think you're kind of operating as a startup within the realms of your budget, right? Cash flow is always an issue. So, you know, there's still some things that we, you know, want to do as a brand, you know, to back up what we're doing even more. I think it's so important to have that transparency across the whole of your supply chain when you're setting up a sustainable brand. So, you know, things like our vegan badge, our cruelty-free badge, you know, our Cosmos certification are all things that we're working towards to kind of even, you know, build the purpose and, you know, the equity around the brand a lot more.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just to go off of that as well, so we all spoke about how sustainability is a journey, and you all must have set goals. It may be useful for our audience if you could maybe explain how you all set those goals, as well as measure the impact of your efforts. I don't know who feel free to jump in, Matt, Eddie.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Matt.
Go on. No, you go.
Oh, yeah. So we, so I think again, I think it's key to obviously track your impact and get some stats behind what you're actually saying. We had a full life cycle analysis completed of our model earlier on this year, and that was really, really important for us, just to kind of get some idea on, you know, how much more carbon efficient is our model, you know, where are the areas that we need to improve on. And I think, you know, that information is out there as well. So, you know, we're not kind of hiding it from the consumer. You know, we use it as a marketing tool as well, you know, to show, to give the customer a little bit more trust in what we're saying and have, you know, back the claims up, our sustainability claims up. So yeah, life cycle analysis was really important for us, and something that we'll continue to assess, you know, as the business grows.
Yeah, that's great. Matt, Eddie, do you guys want to maybe explain how you guys set your goals and measure the impact?
Sure. Yeah. Probably shouldn't say it. Don't tell our investors, but we at the moment don't base our targets on revenue, or at least our North Star is not revenue. It's the number of deodorants that will stop. So we want to stop 1 million single-use deodorants in our first year, which is quite a bold target, but why not? So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're literally launching for real in a couple of weeks, coming off the back of the Kickstarter. So in terms of like the number we've stopped so far, we've stopped around 12,000. So you can see, hopefully it's going to go like that. But that's kind of our goal. Yeah, it's to stop 1 million. And in terms of how we came to that, it's kind of like, yeah, finger in the sky. That sound, you know, but that's about it. Yeah.
Jasmine, do you have anything to add for Faace when it comes to setting goals?
Not particularly. I mean, we obviously set targets and goals and report back on what's been achieved, but for me it's also about just being in tune with sort of industry trends, so just reading and researching a lot. For both my businesses, I just like to sort of stay in touch with what's happening, and if there are developments, trying to just be crystal clear on whether that is the best choice for us as a brand before kind of just jumping on the bandwagon of something. But I just agree with what Anna was saying, particularly about transparency and just making sure that you're really kind of clear in how you communicate with the customer. So what you say you are and what you say you do should just be transparent and open, even if it is not where you necessarily want it to be totally.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'd say that's something that we probably talk about with our clients once a week, that within sustainability, there's no way of defining like, yeah, I've ticked sustainability, now I'm sustainable, but all brands will be on a journey. And yeah, totally agree, Jasmine, that it's, if you're not communicating it, the customers will see through that. And even communicating a journey that you've not finished, but you know where you're going, is like far better than not communicating at all. So yeah, definitely agree with that one. If we maybe go on to kind of following on from that, some of the challenges or difficult decisions you've maybe had in your sustainability journey at your brands. I'm sure there's many. Does anybody want to go first with that?
I can go first if so I mean, yeah, there's still, I mean, alongside like running a startup, which is super stressful anyway, I think when you run a sustainable business and when you've made that commitment to run, you know, to run a business with purpose, you know, you've got this whole other kind of layer of things that you need to consider. So for us, you know, it's not just about putting a product out there. You know, we have to think about, we've kind of reinvented the supply chain in a way, because we've had to find a way to integrate a recycling system within our model, which, you know, poses a challenge to our margins as well, because that's a free of charge service that we offer the consumer. That I mean, few other brands do it, but I think the way we do it, we make it so easy for the customer to send the packaging back. You know, it costs us money. And I think, you know, even down to our formulas, I know Jasmine mentioned it as well, you know, the formulas that we create, they're not cheap, you know, but then to kind of keep it at an affordable price point for the consumer, because I believe sustainability shouldn't be expensive. You know, everyone should be able to buy into it. So keeping it at an affordable price point for the consumer as well, whilst, you know, having this incredible kind of clean formula that is completely natural, free of parabens, you know, all of the nasties, means, you know, our margins take a hit in that way as well. And finding suppliers as well that understand the journey that you're on. I mean, you know, I remember working with the first manufacturer we sourced for our aluminium bottles, and they sent us the aluminium bottles wrapped in layers and layers and layers of plastic, you know, individually. And they did that twice, even though the first time we communicated with them, you know, look, this is completely against what we're trying to achieve as a brand. Please, is there any other alternative way you can package this? And we've eventually got to, you know, got to the point with them where they're sending it, you know, in minimal packaging. But it's things like that, you know, it's educating suppliers. It's, you know, always about sustainable materials are more expensive. Sustainable formulas are more expensive. And it's kind of, how do you strike that balance between making it affordable for the customer, you know, and then, you know, making it a profitable business as well. That's kind of the challenges we've had.
I think from our side, it's the pressures of other businesses that they put on your business as well, whether that's retailers or other people, especially internationally in countries where maybe sustainability isn't so kind of put so much importance on. Then there can be challenges around how do you actually deal with that country when their expectation is for you to do something that goes against like your business beliefs, and you have to kind of make the decision then whether you try and, you know, deal with them in a different way, don't deal with them at all. But of course, as a new business as well, you have to take opportunities as they come along. So that's been a challenge from our side.
Yeah, and for us, it'd be similar to Anna in our supply chain, in that, and we're not there yet, but you know, that'd be a key focus for the next 12 months. But you know, it's hard to be fully sustainable when you haven't got complete oversight over everything your manufacturers do. So that's something that I think is a particular challenge for us ongoing, really, is getting full visibility. You know, suppliers can tell you one thing, but it's only once you go there, you might discover something else. So we're fortunate though to have some great suppliers on board, just so you know.
Yeah, I think as well, one of the frustrations that I have, and probably similar for you guys, is there is so much greenwashing, and there's so many preconceptions at both the consumer level, press and retailer, that you guys are kind of writing the rules in however you define what you're doing. And I think a few of you have mentioned as well that you do have to be doing that education to be not only doing what's best for your brand, but explaining and substantiating that so that you're actually taking everybody else on the journey with you over why you're doing it.
There's so much like confusion around the terminology of plastic free, zero waste, clean, green, all of those things. There is so much greenwashing industry wide that I think it is really challenging if you are trying to put across an honest and truthful message. You know, sometimes maybe your message doesn't actually even sound as strong as some of the other brands that you're competing with, but actually maybe theirs isn't as genuine, which I think can sometimes be a challenge as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We do have a few questions in the chat. So the first one is for Jasmine. You mentioned that you settled on PCR plastic packaging. Was it difficult to work out which solution was best in terms of sustainability? Was there anything that did help in making that choice?
Yeah, we did loads of research and it was a really difficult choice. And in all honesty, it's not one that I'm 100% certain is the best one. You know, you have to make a decision at the end of the day, but it's highly likely that next month I might read something else and actually be like, oh, maybe I should have gone for aluminium, or maybe actually sugarcane would have been the better option. We settled on PCR just because at my other agency, knowing we work with lots of different brands. And so it's not just the feedback that I take on board from our suppliers with Faace, it's also the feedback that I take on board from working with brands, other brands like Faith in Nature that have been doing sustainability for 40 years. It's taking on advice from them as well, and other sources that actually led us to that decision. So that's kind of why, really. But yeah, it's always like evolving, I guess.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. There is so much out there, I think, in terms of what material is best. I mean, I know, for instance, I can tell you right now, you know, aluminium actually carries a heavier carbon footprint than plastic. You know, initially, I think the whole kind of, you know, process of actually extracting it from the earth and then molding it into, you know, into componentry is a lot more energy intensive. But I think, you know, you've got to think about kind of the long-term benefits of using aluminium. In our case, the customer reuses that bottle for life. So then you kind of get some balance in terms of the emissions. But honestly, it's just, it really, really depends. It's so difficult to kind of make that decision, I think, as a brand founder. And it all depends on what your story is. And, you know, we're a refillable brand. So, you know, the componentry that we have has to kind of withstand, you know, the customer's lifestyle and being used in their bathroom, you know, primarily for the next 5 to 6 years. Whereas, you know, like a kind of D2C, you know, brand like Jasmine's, you know, I think plastic is kind of, you know, recycled plastic probably is the best solution. So it really depends. It really, really does. And I think, again, it's just about having that knowledge and that kind of, that's why life cycle assessment is so great, because, you know, it kind of gives you a full breakdown of your supply chain, tells you whether or not the choices that you're making are the right choices.
Yeah, it's been one of the hardest choices for Eddie and I in terms of materials, for sure. We've gone backwards and forwards several times, but because our product is also mechanical, you know, it makes it hard to make the whole thing out of metal, and it just that just wouldn't be doable for us. So we started off with a plant-based plastic, but then we had issues with durability, and obviously it's a refillable product, so now we've moved to recycled plastic. So yeah, I think it's a real tough one, the material choice. I think actually a lot of the problem with plastic as well is that it's like, I mean, controversially, it's a really good material, right?
Yeah.
It's cheap, it's light, it's strong, and that's why we've got such a problem, is because we've not found a material that you know, that manufacturers and designers can replace it easily with, and at the cost that we need.
Yeah, and I think that's why at a consumer level there is so much plastic hating that is not quite as thought through, and people kind of think like it's got to be glass versus plastic, whereas this is because they've been fed that by certain brands that are using that as part of their marketing. So again, I think it's down to all of the individual brands to be telling their story and explaining why they've gone for those choices, because yeah, the consumer isn't as educated as they think they are, unfortunately.
Yeah, and also just a matter, I think Jasmine touched on this, it's just a matter of being honest, because that's what your consumers want from you, is to be honest about where you are in your journey, because those brands that do claim to be the most sustainable, they get figured out, and it doesn't leave a good taste in anyone's mouth when you find out that a brand that you purchased from lied to you. So being honest throughout your journey, where you are, and your challenges, I think that that's what consumers want, and that will draw them closer to you as a brand. So yeah. We do have a few questions from participants. So there's one: do the safety assessors that are needed for approval get involved in checking the packaging materials and sustainability issues too, or just concentrate on the product itself? I don't know which one of you.
I think this might be with regards to the life cycle assessment.
Yes.
Yeah, so we so they basically check the entire, literally everything to do with the supply chain. So packaging issues, packaging components, how that product is shipped to the customer, how it's shipped from your suppliers, right down to the factories, what type of energy are they using? So it's a real kind of in-depth look at the supply chain as a whole, right from kind of, the beginning when the product is being made, right through to the end life when we actually recycle it. So it's a really thorough analysis, and it's super useful for us as a business, because already we've identified a lot of areas that we can improve on, from that assessment. So yeah, it's not just about the product, it's literally the supply chain throughout. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question, and then this can be anyone, feel free to answer this. How do you plan on renewing your product line in the future and always keeping it interesting for customers?
Well, first we need to launch, so we can't get ahead of ourselves. That's just a few weeks away. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's really important that we develop our formula, we develop our deodorant, and we constantly look at that to make sure we are the most effective, hardworking deodorant on the market. And then we can introduce new colors, we're rolling out new scents, so to constantly keep fresh and new news. But I think our ambition is to grow into other bathroom products eventually, but like I said, we can't get ahead of ourselves. We're still due to launch.
Gives me a panic attack thinking about that right now.
While we're on the Fussy, guys, we'll just ask you one more question. I think it's quite an easy one. Is your deodorant 100% natural, including the fragrances?
Yes.
Thought so.
It's 100% natural, just 8 ingredients. And the fragrances are all natural essential oils. We've also got an unscented version of those of you that like the smell of yourself.
And then we'll go on to another question that is basically talking about the larger legacy brands that are backpedaling and trying to keep up with ethical and sustainability brands, with the example being that Garnier has recently become cruelty-free. What do each of you think this means for startups, given that you've entered the market being ethical and sustainable at your core? How do you see those dynamics working? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the honest answer is it makes life harder because we are these are our competitors. At the same time, it makes us try harder and strive to be better. So you know, you can look at it in two ways. There's also a kind of, I guess, an audience insight that people, you know, or certainly with our demographic, they like supporting, you know, independent businesses that stand for something, and, you know, not sort of big multinationals, who sometimes, you know, when they can do a cruelty-free, you know, it's sort of, it can seem a little bit disingenuous when you look at like the rest of their sort of production line and supply chain. But yeah, it's always hard, you know, competing with the big guys.
I'd say on the other hand, though, it's also in some ways helpful, because then there's generally more of a consumer awareness of certain things. So it means that maybe consumers are looking out for things that maybe they weren't. From a press perspective, it can be helpful as well, just because it means that press will be covering angles that are relevant for the brands, that put pressure on them to write about certain things because they advertise with them. So I think I completely agree with what Eddie said, but also I think it can be in some ways beneficial as well.
Totally. We experienced like a direct, obviously Dove released a refillable deodorant a few months back in the US only. And I guess at first it was like, but actually, you know, we saw an uplift in searching for refillable deodorant. So that's that kind of dual benefit. And it's not free from single-use plastic either, just so people know.
Yeah.
That dig in there.
Yeah.
I was going to say as well.
Sorry. Unilever have got huge marketing budgets that they will be using to push forward on these messages. So, but yeah, 100% there will be a benefit from that perspective.
Yeah, they did. I think P&G launched a refillable shampoo actually quite soon. Well, actually just this year. And again, I think, you know, it is great because it does give, like we said, more awareness, you know, around the actual issue. And you know, the customers will be in the market to search that product a lot more. But I definitely think we do have an advantage as smaller brands. I mean, I think the whole thing with COVID as well, like I almost felt like that focus kind of went more towards community brands, right, and kind of smaller brands. And I definitely think that's a shift that will continue to move forward. I know personally, you know, I feel have more trust buying from smaller brands than I do larger brands. And I think customers do recognise that, you know, that brands that have been polluting the world for years and years and years with their, you know, single-use plastic bottles, that are now kind of jumping on the sustainability bandwagon. You know, it's that kind of transparency that they don't have that we do. And customers aren't stupid, you know, they know that. So, you know, I definitely think we've got an advantage there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, if you take L'Oreal as an example, Garnier is one of maybe, I don't know, like 20 brands they've got, if not more, that are obviously not cruelty free. So yeah, customers do see through that they are completely late to the party, and it shows that they've not been doing it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Right, great. People are liking the answers, so that's good. One of the questions that we wanted to make sure we asked each of you was about what recommendations you'd make to other brands in their sustainability journey. So I don't know who wants to start with that.
I mean, I think I definitely think the key thing for us is that I think sometimes, you know, the kind of most obvious answer to being sustainable isn't the most obvious answer, really. I definitely think from a founder perspective, I think it's more of a challenge, as I've said initially, to run a sustainable brand. You've got so many additional pressures, and it's almost a bit of a moral thing as well. You know, you've kind of, I think all brands now, we're kind of in this crisis, right, where, you know, we know that we're draining the planet's resources, and we all need to be doing a little bit more. And I think the pressure is on brands to step up to that challenge. But, you know, I definitely think for us, I mean, I know I've already spoken about it, but I think the most useful thing for us is just making sure that we have all of the claims that back up what we're saying. You know, I don't want to be one of those brands where, you know, I'm just using all of these fancy buzzwords on the website when they don't actually mean anything. So, you know, having that kind of that really strong root in sustainability, having someone on our advisory board that is basically a sustainable expert who does all of our life cycle analysis for us, was really important for us as a business, you know, to know we've got that person that's really going to help us drive that kind of crucial mission forward as well. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Should we go on to you, Jasmine?
Yeah, so I think, of course, it's about the sustainability aspect, but I think it's actually about every aspect. It needs to just be, it kind of resonated with me a lot when the Fussy guys were saying that they're really fussy about everything they do, because my answer to that would be the same, just being meticulous about every choice that you make, that you do have a responsibility, not just to be as sustainable as you possibly can within all of your choices, to do as much research as you possibly can, but I think you have a responsibility in terms of everything that you're doing. So I guess like my advice is just to be really robust in the way that you approach everything. So think about your language, think about your messaging, and like what you want to stand for, think about your aesthetic, because the consumer's gonna kind of see if you're insincere at any touch point, if you see what I mean. So I think it's quite an obvious thing to say, but I think the more you can meticulously think about every decision you make, the better you know, standing you'll be in when you do launch to market, because you'll have thought about every single possible scenario and thought about every kind of aspect of the brand.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's about doing it in a way that's authentic to your brand, as opposed to doing it, yeah, in that kind of because you think you should be saying this or doing.
Yeah, I'd add to that as well that you know, when it comes about being meticulous and stuff, I think for too long, kind of, you know, certainly within sustainable products, the responsibility has been kind of shoved to consumer, whereas actually it's the brands that have the responsibility to make it easier, to make it cheaper, to make it more desirable. So I think I'd keep that in focus if I was starting a brand. It's like always keep the consumer in mind. How do we make this as pleasant and as easy as an experience for them? Because yeah, you know, we like to say it's the brands that have the responsibility, it's us that have the responsibility, but ultimately the consumer has the power more than they realise to vote with their wallet effectively. And only when those two kind of marry up that we'll kind of create real change, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that point, do any of you guys have any interesting insight from your community or customers with regards to purpose, in terms of kind of how they value it or what you've done based on feedback you've had from them?
We had a lot of we put out quite a few surveys actually, just around the time we were rebranding, mainly around our kind of recycling service, and just if customers actually found it useful, and if they found that they felt like they were being more sustainable and making better choices by us helping them to recycle the packaging. And the response we got was great. I mean, it was quite a, you know, I think customers understand they understand the mechanism behind what we're doing and understand why it's so important. The main kind of message that we got back from them was that, you know, we want to see, you know, how our packaging is being recycled, what it's being made into. You know, they wanted a lot more kind of details, and almost to say, you know, are you actually really recycling it? You know, where is this actually going? So I think the customer, you know, our customer is I guess the type of customer we're attracting as well. You know, they've come to us because they want to live a more sustainable lifestyle. So I think it's all of those kind of little nuances that they expect. You know, they want a behind the scenes. I think we asked them, you know, what would you like to see in terms of content from us behind the scenes at the recycling plant? You know, like, you know, seeing how our products being recycled, you know, was one of the things that cropped up. So I think as Matt said rightly, you know, the customer has so much power, and I think they're a lot more clued up than they used to be, I think, about these issues, and they're looking up to us as the brands to make responsible choices, you know, and help them you know, live more sustainably.
Yeah, I think they want to be educated and be part of the solution.
Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just like, I feel like generally everyone's being more mindful of being kind of about how like health is the new wealth, and actually like, you know, there isn't this kind of being kind of busy and manic isn't put on the pedestal that it was kind of pre-COVID. And so it's all about those things of buying like less but buying really well. And I think like exactly that, the customers kind of looking to brands to kind of be able to provide those things, provide that communication with them, and provide that kind of education as well.
Yeah. And the pervasive greenwashing within the industry has just made us all skeptics. So that's why it's so important to be transparent, and that's why consumers are demanding it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm.
And just following on from that, probably one of our last questions, it'd be good to get predictions from some of you guys over how you see sustainability changing over the coming years.
It's really kind of I know somebody's just asked a question about competition as well, which kind of ties into what I was going to say, but you know, it's interesting. I mean, at the moment, there are some fantastic innovations in personal care, especially. So, you know, I saw a brand the other week that was basically just a dissolvable sheet of body wash, which was absolutely incredible. You know, completely zero waste, dissolves down the drain. You know, when I was looking at that and thinking, oh my gosh, that is such an amazing idea. But it kind of, always go back to the question, is the customer ready for that yet? You know, is that kind of too far in that direction? But I definitely think there's going to be more of the way in innovation. I think for sustainability, I doubt that our model is going to look the same way that it looks now in 5 years' time. And I think as a brand, you know, that's sustainable, we have to be, you know, really kind of on the ball with those changes in sustainability to kind of keep up with the market, because there are going to be innovations, you know, like that one that I saw the other day already, you know, that's kind of happening. So yeah, so I definitely think, I mean, waterless is a huge thing as well. You know, that kind of is happening now. I definitely think there's going to be loads more in the way of those brands kind of popping up. So yeah, I mean, as I've said, I think in the sustainable space, I think there's going to be a lot of innovation, because this is where everyone's headed.
I think it'll also almost be a given. So like,
yeah,
all brands will be expected to plant X amount of trees or do something. I think it will almost be a given rather than a niche thing for brands to do. I think everybody will just be expected from the customer that brands are just going to do that in the future.
I think that's ultimately why the legacy brands have had to catch up, because I think they've probably historically they've seen it as something that is an investment in margin, whereas the movement at a consumer level and innovation is just proving that it's not something that's going to go away, and it will be that baseline expectation.
Totally, yeah. I think it used to just be like a tick point, didn't it? Like CSR, you know?
Yeah.
We've done our CSR for the year kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Any other advice in terms of dealing with competitors?
Don't get too distracted, I'd say. We've got like a killer competitor who's doing really well and is you know, predominantly the same product. So yeah, it's kind of, you know, I think in our early days we were slightly too focused on watching them, and obviously you've got to know what competition's doing, but you watch them too much and you'll just end up doing what they're doing. So you know, have confidence and focus, and like believe in yourselves, I suppose, and back your product.
I think there's definitely this thing as well. I mean, I think in the sustainable space, it is, I mean, it's a difficult concept to comprehend, but I think, you know, there's a lot of sustainable brands that are kind of, you know, joining forces really, you know, in similar spaces to actually, because, you know, we are all working towards the same goal. So I definitely think there's probably going to be a lot more in the way of collaboration rather than competition, to be completely honest. But, you know, I still think, again, you know, I completely agree. I think it's just about not being distracted. I think staying in your lane. I think developing a proposition, you know, that your customer loves, and getting to know your customer and kind of taking them along that journey with you, I think is really important. So, yeah.
Jasmine, anything you wanted to add?
No, I agree with what they both said. Yeah, exactly. That's what I would have said. So
yeah, and I think as well, what we see as well is investors don't necessarily see it as a bad thing if you do have brands that are doing similar things, because it feeds into what we were saying about those like general trends and the market opportunity. I think it's, yeah, it kind of proves that you're on the right track to an extent as well.
It drives innovation as well, competition.
Yeah.
If we didn't have competition, like, we'd all just be sat back.
So yeah, if there's any final questions, obviously do let us know. I think for me, I think some of the key takeaways are we've got a fantastic examples of founders that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of sustainability. It's not easy. There isn't a right answer. And I think it is definitely about putting your stake in the ground on that journey and being committed and honest in how you approach that. Courtney, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, it's just to reiterate what everyone said, it is a journey. So you just want to have a one-way ticket to that journey, you know, it's not a destination. So just also what Jasmine said, just keep researching. I mean, there's always going to be innovation within sustainability. So as long as you're focused and your mission is to create a positive impact, you will be driven to essentially accomplish that. So just remain true to who you are and to who your brand is.
Yeah, and maybe just each of the founders, if you could just give us a kind of closing remark, that would be good. Who should we start with? Fussy, guys?
I've stitched myself up there, haven't I?
I'm glad you did.
A closing remark. Yeah, thanks for listening. I'll probably point you towards our website, getfussy.com, for 20% off. That would probably be my closing remark. Eddie, help me out.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Anna?
Yeah, well, similar thing, yeah. So obviously we're launching next week. So as much traffic as we can get to the site would be amazing. So yeah, so share, you know, like, follow. Yeah, that's about it really. And I think just, you know, I think as I mean, I guess as consumers, you know, I think again, you know, I think you're the ones that are actually gonna, you know, make this change with the brands. So I think it's really important, I think, to be talking about this and to be, you know, really champion and supporting those brands that are genuinely trying to make a difference, you know. And it isn't the big brands, you know, it all starts from the bottom, you know. It's the smaller brands here that I think are going to make the greatest change. So yeah,
I think also I'd just say, like, don't be too rigid in your approach. It can be scary to be flexible, but if anything, you know, the last year's taught us is that we don't know what's around the corner without being too cheesy. And so we've just had to be like really flexible this whole year, and only being a year old, that's like the way we've began, and so that's the way we'll continue. So don't stress out about that too much, and like Anna and Eddie said, just stay in your lane and it all will come good, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you to all of our speakers and everybody that's sent in questions and who has listened. If there's any questions that you want to contact us via email, then yeah, you've got emails and contact details here. And yeah, sign up to our newsletter to hear about the next events that we do. And yeah, thank you to everybody. Have a good evening and bank holiday, or day if you're in the US.
thanks everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.